Deep in the hills of Tennessee, midway between Nashville and Knoxville, lies a little community called Muddy Pond. During September and October, you can smell the aroma of freshly made sorghum syrup being made by this family-run farm. We had the opportunity to visit last weekend and are excited to bring to today's table sorghum.
I'm Lainey.
And I'm Laura Beth, and we are
Steel Magnolias. The strength of steel with the grace of a magnolia.
We are here to have uplifting conversations about life in the South.
And we've got plenty of room at our table, so pull up a chair. Well, I continue to be schooled on doing research for this podcast. I don't know. Do you too?
It's crazy. I've always heard from the most wise of people in their old age, they're still learners.
Yeah, just embrace it.
So lifelong learning is a real thing.
So I just thought when I heard sorghum that it meant the syrup that's similar to maple syrup or a molasses.
Yes.
That is what sorghum is. Come to find out.
To us, that is what it is, yes. To many, I think.
Okay, well, I'm glad you said that because I was like, oh, what I've always thought of just as the word sorghum is actually sweet sorghum or sorghum syrup.
Right.
Whereas sorghum is a grain.
Yes.
That can be used for all different kinds of things.
So if this were Jeopardy, we'd be saying, what is a grain of grass species? Or
yes, yeah. Exactly. Well, there are many types of sorghum.
Yeah.
So I think we should just start there with our conversation.
Let's do.
So there's grain sorghum, forage sorghum, biomass sorghum, and sweet sorghum.
Okay, so in layman's terms, that's food for humans, animal feed, and ethanol.
Yes. And then also the sweet.
And good for baking.
Yes. And putting on biscuits.
Warming up and putting on your biscuits.
So the grain comes in red, orange, bronze, tan, white, and black varieties. Did you know that?
No, not before this. Again,
it can be made. It can be made into flour. Mm-hmm. It can be like a little pearled grain.
Yeah.
I just think this is so cool.
It's the world's fifth most important cereal crop after rice, wheat, maize, and barley. Those are major crops.
Yeah.
I would never have thought. And sorghum.
And it's so important. It grows well in heat and dry conditions.
Yes.
So that's important even for the world.
For sure.
Poverty-stricken areas that are hot, sorghum can grow and they can eat it.
Yes.
As a life source.
Yes.
Anyway, I was amazed.
So it grows really tall. It looks like corn.
In fact, I've wondered now that I've seen it actually growing. Oh, have I sometimes driven by and assumed it was corn when if I looked a little closer.
Right.
It's actually sorghum.
And it's been here in the U.S. for many years now. It was first recorded by Benjamin Franklin in 1757.
Okay.
Being
so
in the United States.
Here longer,
but it didn't originate here.
Okay.
But
Asia and Africa, maybe? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Originated in Africa. And now it's even in, like you were saying, subtropical regions of the world because it can grow in heat.
Well, and it looks kind of similar. It looks so much like corn, but the stalk actually looks a lot like sugarcane or bamboo.
Yes.
To me.
Yeah, so I bet we've seen it a lot of times and just wrote it off as being corn.
I think the grain is sometimes called millet or milo as well.
Oh, okay.
I've heard of millet.
Okay.
In cereals and things like that. Anyway, the forage sorghum is used for feeding livestock or hay production.
Okay, I'm not even familiar with that at all.
I looked up how to say that word because I was thinking of the French fromage, so I was going to say forage, and I'm like, look that up before you say it. It's forage. So then I got tickled because I was thinking you could make forage porridge for your cattle.
Livestock. Wow.
Forage porridge. Okay. Biomass sorghum can reach 20 feet high.
That's crazy.
And it's used for ethanol and production of bioenergy.
Yes. How do you keep, and I don't even think they put stakes. Like, it's just strong. Like we were
that
saying,
strong
like a
like a
bamboo.
bamboo.
So it's not going to
It's
need
hardy.
your tomato plant stakes. It's a little bit taller than that.
No, it'll grow so tall it'll make shadows on your tomatoes. I was thinking about the grain sorghum.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to get to know that pearly grain better
Okay.
in cooking, because one of the things I thought was so cool about that is it's very low in sodium and gluten-free.
Yes. Yes.
I never know how to do things for gluten-free eaters.
Yes.
And there's a lot I think that you could probably do with this sorghum grain.
Okay.
And even the sorghum flour.
Yes.
So I was thinking you could probably, we saw some, I've seen pancake mix that is from sorghum.
Okay.
And then you could put sorghum on it, like sorghum flour
Absolutely.
pancakes with sorghum on it.
Gluten-free, that's very helpful for much of the population.
Would be really yummy.
Yes.
Yeah, there's lots of different, salads, kind of like you think of like a couscous or something like that.
Yeah.
This pearly grain of sorghum could be used.
Yes.
Anyway, I know we're focusing on sweet, but I just thought this is
interesting
something I need
plant.
to kind of play around with to maybe get more familiar with for cooking for gluten-free people.
Yeah.
Sorghum.
Yes. And since I think so many people group sorghum and molasses in just this category of brown syrup,
Yeah.
I just wanted to briefly say
The
that
difference?
there are some differences.
Okay.
And the taste and consistency difference would be that sorghum tends to be thinner
Yeah.
than molasses and a little more sour in taste. The sorghum would be a little more sour than molasses. But the sorghum plant, which we've talked about, it spread throughout the American South due to its resilience against hot temperatures, which you said, and dry conditions. The syrup was then developed as a sugar and molasses alternative. Okay, so
Okay.
sugar, molasses, then enters sorghum. Molasses, on the other hand, was it was brought to the U.S. from the Caribbean. Okay, that was it. That was its molasses came up through the Caribbean, and which was the epicenter of the sugarcane industry. And
did they use it?
It was used in rum production.
Okay,
Is that where your mind was going?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so up until the 19th century, molasses was actually even more popular than sugar because it was cheaper.
Very interesting. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that would, yeah.
So molasses is the byproduct of processing sugarcane into sugar. And sugarcane is stripped of its leaves and the juice is extracted from the cane by crushing or mashing. The juice is then boiled to concentrate it, which produces the crystallization of sugar. And we're going to talk about the sorghum process a little later because we actually went and visited a sorghum mill.
And got to even taste that cane. I chewed on
Yes,
it, remember?
yes.
Okay, well, I would also say sorghum syrup ranges in different colors. It can be like a light amber color all the way to like a darker brown.
Think of your bourbon spectrum.
That's
right.
so true.
Yeah.
The darker the color, to me, the more similar it is to molasses.
Yes.
Too.
Agree.
Anyway.
Yeah. The kind we tasted was pretty light, didn't you think, in color?
Yeah. Well, one of the ways I've had sorghum before, sweet sorghum, that is so wonderful because you actually get the full flavor is just on a hot biscuit with butter.
Yes. Yes.
So, if you have some sorghum and you want to let others experience that, make some homemade biscuits.
Right. That's true.
Put butter on it.
I mean, it can be used in other things, barbecue sauces and salad dressings. But if you want to just a very most basic sorghum tasty experience on a hot biscuit,
Just get it on
is
a
a
hot
good way to
biscuit.
start.
Well, there's a reason we wanted to talk about this right now, and that is fall foods are so wonderful with sweet sorghum.
Yes.
In fact, I feel like a lot of the sorghum things just go with fall.
Yeah, they do.
Sorghum cookies. If you've ever had a molasses cookie, kind of reminds me of like a ginger snap.
Yes.
situation, kind
Yeah,
of.
not a soft cookie, a little crunchier.
Little warm, yeah. A sorghum cookie is a great thing you can make. I've seen this used in pecan pies, which I think is a
Ooh.
fall food
Oh, I bet
to
that
me.
tastes so good. Yes.
Caramel corn. It's
Okay.
made with sorghum
For sure.
in
Very
the
fall.
topping. Very fall. We're going to be coming into root vegetables soon, like turnips and things like that. You can glaze them with sorghum. Yum.
Wow, that sounds really good.
And then I've even seen these glazes used on like pork tenderloin or ribs.
Yes.
And I saw a recipe that I want to try that was sorghum bacon vinaigrette.
Yum.
Does that not sound so good?
So good.
I mean,
Okay.
how can you go wrong when it's sweet and salty?
That's
together?
true. That's true. Yeah, I think there's a lot of chefs that are not starting to, that have been integrating sorghum more into their menus as well.
Yes, I've mentioned on this show before Edward Lee, who's
your favorite.
He is a favorite, nominated for many times James Beard Award. But he uses sorghum a good bit. In fact, I was looking at an article where he mentioned he had actually never had sorghum until he moved to Kentucky.
Okay.
And
where he found beautiful women in bourbon, right?
Yeah, I thought that was so cute when he said that. But he said now he uses it on everything from ham to ice cream. And that he has basically stopped buying honey once he found sorghum.
Now, that's a strong statement.
I know.
Because honey is, I feel like, a staple pantry item.
I know, but he says hardly ever buys it now that he's found sorghum. Because he uses it for the same things and he prefers the sorghum flavor.
Wow.
Anyhow.
It makes him a little special, too.
Yeah, and his restaurants are Louisville and Washington, D.C., so he probably likes to kind of play up the southernness.
Sure, yeah. Well, you found a fantastic place for us to visit. Should we talk about our trip to Muddy Pond?
Sure, let's do
So
it.
it was about a 2-hour drive from where we live in Nashville, and this is such a pretty time of year anyway, because the leaves are starting
get out
to
on
change.
A journey.
But you exit at this just great classic small town called Monterey, Tennessee. Lots of animals that we pass by on farms, and just beautiful Tennessee, classic Tennessee, I would say. Lots of ponds. Only one is named for the Muddy Pond, but a lot of ponds. We first stopped and had lunch at the Country Porch.
So adorable.
Which was a happening little spot. They had amazing bread. There are a lot of Amish Mennonite communities in this area, as well as just local farmers. And so the bread, y'all, was so good. And it was just one of those beautiful days. We sat outside at one of their many picnic tables and
playground for the kids to run around and play. Just beautiful flowers on the porch. It was very sweet.
Now, Muddy Pond claims to be home to the best sorghum and fried pies in the state. Did you know that? Because you bought a peach fried pie.
I said I think they're known for fried pies.
You
so
just
I
know
did
so
know
much.
that.
Okay. So we had a peach fried pie along with our yummy sandwich, and it was good. It was very good.
I'm now remembering I left a half of a fried pie in your thing of your car.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been in there overnight, but that's okay.
You'll have to let me know what thing you're talking about after the show. So, you can stay in Muddy Pond. There's cabin rentals in this area. But when I'm saying Muddy Pond, it's actually just kind of this little...
You use the word village, and I'm like, that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't all walkable. We kept moving in the car from spot to spot because, the general store and the restaurant were pretty close to each other. But there's not like a shoulder or sidewalk to walk on.
No.
And the mill is even further down the road. So
there's a leather shop. Like, you would really need to be in the car.
Yeah.
Well, how would you have gotten there anyway? So, you're in the car.
Yeah. So I know, but I like to just describe or have people get a visual. Like, are you just driving to this one place
and then you walk
and
everywhere?
then you're walking around everywhere? No, but you can, when you go to the sorghum mill, you can taste the syrup while it's still warm. You can, oh, it's so cute on their website. They're just so proud. You can hear the train whistle blow as the wood-fired steam locomotive boiler makes the steam that boils the juice down to syrup. Like, they're just so proud.
That's
I love
awesome.
it. You can purchase some to take home with you there.
And they even had, I did not purchase a lot of this stuff because I just felt like I needed to be mindful of health issues too.
Yes.
But they had the sorghum cookies, the caramel corn, all the wonderful fall things, all different sizes of sorghum that you could purchase, from really, really small, could like fit in a stocking,
Yes,
to big gallon kind
Yeah.
of containers. That would only be for a restaurant, I would think.
for sure.
But yeah,
And still warm.
lollipops for the kids that were sorghum, all kinds of things.
My 3-year-old didn't care for that, but I think he was just expecting a different taste.
Yes.
I think that threw him when he tasted a lollipop that wasn't cherry. So,
Yeah.
yeah, all of this was still warm, like hot off
Literally,
the press,
yeah.
as they say. But yeah, this is family run, and so this all started in the mid 60s when
Okay.
John and Emma, I think you say their name Gunther.
Okay.
I might be butchering that, but they started their operation and then actually formed the operation in the early 80s.
Well,
And
I'm
then-
tickled that you said it started in the 60s, because I'm like, this is like a hippie commune. We called it a village, but
That's so true.
let's face it, it's like an Amish.
Yeah, like they
hippie
were
commune.
they were making the sorghum and sharing it amongst themselves in the 60s. You're exactly right. And the operation kind of formalized in the 80s.
Some other hippie decided to open a leather shop up the road, and somebody else was making yeast bread.
Yes. Wow, what a picture of the times, right? And now people are coming in, and it's now a tourist attraction, which I'm sure they
there
never
was even
dreamed.
the volunteer fire department was having a barbecue on the same road we drove in on.
Yes, their annual barbecue where there were kids sitting up top on
top of the fire trucks.
a kid's dream, right? I mean,
Totally.
I wanted to climb up there.
Totally. I saw a lot of cowboy hats on boys, and yeah, it's a pretty neat little community they got going.
Well, they have lots of family that's involved in the business, down to even grandchildren that are working at the mill. The young lady we saw driving the tractor, she was a grandchild. I later heard somebody saying. But, they're trying to pass this down and keep it going. But sorghum demand has increased. And so they had to figure out how to go from cutting the cane by hand with a machete, having a horse go around in a circle,
which we watched the process
Yes.
of how it worked, and it's pretty amazing even how that worked. Basically, they would feed the stalk in. Mom said it's like your juicer, Lainey.
It is.
Where you feed it in, the juice comes out into a bucket or a big barrel, rather, going through kind of a cheesecloth tarpy kind of thing that it would drip through to get any kind of, if there was any of the.
And to keep the yellow jackets out that were fiercely wanting to get in. Yeah.
And then it's fed through a tube all the way down to the actual mill.
Yes.
Where they're heating it up.
Yeah.
Getting the water out.
Yeah. And so that with the horse can produce 100 gallons a day of sorghum.
Which is pretty decent in the 60s, 70s, 80s. But now with demand and population increase,
they had to come up with a machine, and it took them several years to come up with this specialized machine. It just looks like a tractor, but it's specialized in what it's doing. The machine cuts the cane and presses and squeezes the juice out. It's like doing this all at once. This is crazy. And pumps it into a tank that is pulled behind the machine. So that mechanism takes it from not 100 gallons a day, but now we're talking 3,000 gallons a day. So the tank of juice is taken to the sorghum mill, pumped into a holding tank. It's preheated, like overnight preheated, and early the next morning they start boiling it. And we got to see the boiling sorghum, and I wonder how hot that would have been.
I mean,
it looked really hot.
Yeah.
I never heard a temperature or anything. But yeah, it's in these massive pans that are
just bubbling, boiling.
Yeah. Yeah. So then the finished product is cooled and bottled and ready to
And
pour
they
on.
literally were bottling it
Yeah,
and putting it out
right
on
there.
the shelf.
Yeah, that was probably some grandchildren too at the
Yeah.
very end of the line. So it was fascinating.
It really is.
To see the process, and it was simple yet complicated to me at the same time. But I just am always thinking, who decided this is edible? Let's go with this.
Right. Okay. So in the process where we were seeing the horse go around, they would cut the stalk.
Yeah.
And the guy that was doing the little tour, he said, "Who wants to taste it?" Well, I'm always up for trying something. So he cut a little piece with his pocket knife and handed it to me. And he was like, "Don't, like, just kind of chew into it and suck the juice out." So I did. And so to describe it, the texture was tougher than an apple, but similar to an apple.
Okay.
In that, how when you chew it, like a little bit of juice starts to come out.
Yes.
That's how this was.
Okay.
But yeah, it's wild to me to think, who thought, oh, this is, I mean, maybe it was bees coming around a cut open stalk and they're like, is it sweet?
That's true.
I don't know.
That could have been.
Bees are always wanting to be around sweet smelling
stuff.
things.
Yeah.
But yeah, to juice that out, I don't know.
It just makes me think, are there things today that exist on this planet
that we could be
eating that we don't know that we could be eating?
Yeah.
Like, that are like amazing. That we're just
I know, it's funny when you think like that. Like somewhere in Vermont, somebody saw this maple tree oozing and like licked it. I don't know. To know that maple syrup was in there. I don't know how that all comes about, but
yeah, because at some point somebody's taking a risk.
And another thing is the opposite of, like, how do we find out things are poisonous?
Right.
Like there's these certain mushrooms you're not supposed to eat because somebody ate one,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating stuff.
Difficult case study to be a part of. You can buy any of this online. I wanted to make sure and let people know. And
Muddy Pond has a website.
We'll link to that in our show notes. They do ship, but it's just domestically in the U.S. So if you're outside the U.S., so sorry, you're going to have to come visit us. But I wanted to even say to those that are kind of close to Tennessee but aren't going to this area of Middle Tennessee where we're talking about, this group goes to festivals and does these demonstrations.
Oh, that's cool.
A lot in East Tennessee. They are at Dollywood right now.
Okay.
But they bring the horse and do the demonstration and sell it.
That's so cool.
They do a lot in and around the Smoky Mountains, which is also East Tennessee. But I think they're really trying to spread the information and education of this, especially since the demand seems to be growing.
Yeah.
Like, let's know the source of our food. And again, as we've mentioned so many times here, it just makes you appreciate eating anything so much more when you see how difficult it was just to get from what it was to what it's on your plate.
Well, and I think it's funny once fancy chefs are onto something like an Edward Lee, all of a sudden a dish is probably super marked up.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Yes.
And it's like a simple ingredient,
right?
That you can
on
get.
Tonight's special,
right?
Yeah, I can just hear it now.
Exactly. If you want to try to incorporate some sorghum, if you order some from Muddy Pond or wherever, and you want to incorporate it even in a recipe you already have, you can substitute sorghum syrup for molasses or corn syrup or honey or maple syrup. Mm-hmm. Any recipe that has that, you can put the sorghum in. I did read that you might want to swap half portions to see how it affects the texture and taste, and play around with it.
Yeah, because I'm just sitting here thinking, wonder how it does in tea for those that take honey in their tea. Wonder how much it changes that taste. I've never tried that, so...
Yeah, that would be a good way to know.
It'd be a kind of subtle entry into the sorghum world rather than baking with it and spending a lot of labor and time.
Well, I want to make that bacon vinaigrette.
That sounds so good.
I'll be making that real soon.
That sounds so good. We did however, leave the Muddy Pond Village property, township, whatever you want to call it, without trying the Sorghum Black Buggy beer that we saw a
That's
sign
right.
for.
We did see that, and we probably should have at least tasted it because I'm cracking up. The Black Buggy, like obviously another
I know.
Amish thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it was just we were too checked out. Like we
Right.
were
And
leaving.
another thing we saw, do you remember, actually Mom saw, was the Pappy's.
Oh my gosh.
She saw a truck that was Pappy's Moonshine Delivery.
Yes. Moonshine delivery.
Yeah.
Like, set it on the truck.
And he just can deliver. So anyway,
That was our first actual thing that we saw after coming out with our little sandwiches to sit down.
and we
at the
weren't ready to
picnic
grab
table.
a picture, and it was moving.
I was
So
like,
he was on a delivery. We didn't get to see.
Where are we? Where have we just landed ourselves? Goodness, this is going to be a day.
We do some fun outings, don't we?
That was fun. That was
Well,
really
if
fun.
we've gotten you all interested in some making your fall foods more scrumptious,
Yes.
with sorghum, we have more fun fall outings and food topics that we're going to be covering soon. So if you are not following us on Instagram, you should be.
Yes, that's right.
You really should be, because we're going to be showing some fun things.
Well, and we're going to put the whole video reel up of this day at Muddy Pond and show you the process.
See
So,
there, you should be following us. And if you haven't left us a review wherever you get podcasts, will you do that? Because that helps other people find us, and well, they'd have fun sitting at the table too.
That's right. There's
So-
plenty of room at the table. So pull up a chair for somebody else too.
Or share personally with your friends. That's always great too.
Yeah. Okay. Great topic. Thanks for being here with us. We so enjoy our weekly chats with each other that we get to share with you guys.
Yes. So peace be with you.
And also with y'all.